All right, guys, good morning. We are looking at Regents Review. We're on day 3, so very similar setup. The only difference today is we're going to spend a little time just going over the DBQ. You're going to get some final tips. You'll notice a doc that was posted if you want to just take a quick look at that. But I'm going to put the timer on the board. You're going to have 10 minutes, as per usual. Just go through these go through these terms, see what you can remember, see what you could write down, and then obviously we'll share out and go over them. So timer is going to start very shortly. And there you go. All right, timer's going. So start with these words. We'll go over them in the next 10 minutes or so. For those that just came in late, you are looking at the terms. You have until the timer is up on the board, trying to write down as much as you can with these words. We'll go over them soon. About 3 minutes left. Are any of you guys text or friends with Allah or Reiners? Because Allah is having an issue with his Gmail, and I was able to kind of fix it. So, do you, any of you guys text them? Okay, I'll take your silence as a no. All right, I just emailed them both, but if you guys text them, just please let me know, because I would like to try and get them on a little quicker. All right, guys, so let's get started. So we looked at John Locke. He was one of our first major individuals we looked at in this class. Who remembers who John Locke was or why he was important? All right, so Gentiana says major influencer when the founding fathers wrote the Declaration of Independence. Good. Created natural right and the social contract theory. Both of you guys are correct. Enlightenment philosopher came up with the idea of natural rights, influenced the Declaration of Independence. Okay, pretty well said. So Jefferson took a lot of his teachings from John Locke, okay, and then used it in the Declaration of Independence. So that's where you got the inalienable rights. It talked about the role of government and the social contract theory. So we talked about some of these things yesterday. So very good. All right, in Unit 2, we got to something called the Monroe Doctrine. What was the Monroe Doctrine? All right, a foreign policy where Europe wasn't allowed to try and colonize with the Western Hemisphere because the U.S. would declare war, or at least be upset, okay? They would maybe do sanctions before war, but that's fine. Foreign policy, stay out of Europe, stay out Europe. If you remember the assignment, stay out, yeah, stay away Europe, okay, stay out Europe. We wanted to basically any country in North and South America, we don't want any European countries to further colonize lands, okay? So that doesn't mean if they had a colony there, like if France was already in South America, they weren't going to kick them out, but they definitely didn't want them to try and get a new area in the Western Hemisphere. For a country that's only been around 60 years at this point, the United States, this requires a little bit of a good military. So this was something that America, did. All right, and definitely, went a long way a little bit. This was a tough one. Any compromise is tough because you have to look at both sides. Okay, but when you look at the compromise of 1850, what are some major things for it? So yes, all right, there's three aspects of the compromise of 1850. It was what happened after, what did the North get, and what did the South get? So Orr said, let territories decide if they wanted slavery through popular sovereignty, which is voting. So every territory becoming a state after 1950 had to decide via vote, okay, if they're going to be a slave state or a free state. The South got a much stronger fugitive slave law, okay? The North got California to become a free state, which basically, as Gentiana said, overturns the Missouri Compromise, as gives California more power in government, the free states, that is. So this was a tough one, all right? It really was. You don't have to really remember it was a compromise by Henry Clay. California came in as a free state. Okay, gave the free states more power. The Fugitive Slave Act, okay, which we should know all about, okay, made it a lot harder for runaway slaves to get to the North and be free, and established popular sovereignty or voting in the next state, okay, that comes in. And I put in parentheses Bleeding Kansas because those elections that would be held became very, very violent, okay, so pretty good. All right, the French word laissez-faire, okay, laissez-faire, it's pronounced a bunch of different ways, okay. A good start, Gentiana. The government does not interfere with what the people do, specifically, okay, when it comes to economics. Okay, so laissez-faire means hands off. All right, the government doesn't get involved. All right, there's no regulation on business. They don't interfere whatsoever. Too much laissez-faire, maybe, this is where you get things like monopolies. All right, so hands off government, and government should not interfere with the economy or politics. Leads to monopolies, installment buying, some of the problems that we saw in the 1920s. Also could lead to an economic boom, okay? So it's a little bit of a controversial thing, but this is something that we practiced a lot in the late 1800s prior to the Progressive Era. So this is sometimes known as the Gilded Age. Okay, you would see a lot of this particular policies. All right, let's head in back here. The temperance movement, all right? Okay, the second you see temperance movement, you should think alcohol, all right? And we should know a lot of the people upset with alcohol in this country were women. We talked about how a lot of men were the ones drinking at this point in time, and a lot of the men were the ones who were becoming more violent with women and then sometimes being drunk and not really, maintaining their job. So a lot of women got frustrated by this. This was created to get a ban on alcohol. Don't forget the 18th Amendment was passed, okay? So we got a constitutional law passed banning alcohol, and then it was later overturned with the 21st. We know the mafia comes in. We know there's a rise in crime after this. This movement had good intentions, but when the law was actually passed, things seemed to get worse, and people didn't really stop drinking. So this ended up being a movement that was, good in theory, but never was successful in terms of what happened afterwards. All right. And then we go all the way back to Unit 1. We go back to a term called the writs of assistance. All right. British soldiers can go into colonists' house and basically look through people's items and personal property, and if they find something that wasn't taxed, they can confiscate it or they can force you to pay a tax on it. This is eventually leading to our Fourth Amendment. Okay, so that's the key thing. Because the British did this, we passed an amendment, right? The Quartering Act. Okay, because the British soldiers went into people's homes, that's why we have the Third Amendment, no quartering of soldiers. Because the British soldiers, went and taxed items in people's homes and went into properties without asking, that's why we have the Fourth Amendment. Okay, it was a response. It's a historical circumstance, so to speak. All right, so the writs of assistance is correct. All right, yesterday I forgot to do the Regents questions. I apologize. It's always good to get a little extra practice. So let's take a look at this top question here. John Locke's theory of natural rights is reflected in the Declaration of Independence, states that what? Careful with this one. There we go, 3, Abigail, or 3 is correct. All right, power to govern belongs to the people. When I looked at this quickly, I almost picked 1. All right, it's not. Government's not the source of all rights. Your rights are inalienable. Okay, they're God-given. So some would say back in the 1700s. One important goal of the Monroe Doctrine was to what? Yep, 4 is correct. Prevent former colonial powers from taking over Latin American nations. Very good. Let's keep it going. Missouri Compromise of 1820 and Compromise of 1850 were attempts by the federal government to what? This one should be pretty straightforward. Okay, very good. 2 is correct. Reduce the conflict over slavery. The U.S. government, laissez-faire principles during the late 19th century resulted in what? Good. 4, growth of trusts and monopolies. Trusts and monopolies are slightly different. You don't really need to know the difference for this class. This is one of the things that comes if you're very hands-off. Okay, people take advantage of the system, so to speak. 2 more, I think. This is not hard. Okay, the correct answer for this top one here is 3. This is just an example. Okay, we don't have to do that one. That's just an example of how it might look. And take a look at the bottom one. British government's use of writs of assistance against American merchants is one of the reasons the Bill of Rights includes protection against what? All right, this correct answer is 4. Okay, unreasonable search and seizure. You don't want people coming into your homes or the police coming into your homes without a warrant. All right, very good. All right, let's move on quickly. So you would have noticed, okay, this document here, if you guys just want to open it up and look around. So the class did vote, 75% to 25%. They would like a DBQ essay. Pretty much just to, so you hear this on Friday, I'll post in the morning the entire test. You'll have 50 multiple choice. You could do it at any point. If you want to start with the DBQ will be posted as well. You can start with the DBQ, then go to the multiple choice, and then vice versa. Okay. Please make sure you're paying attention because I will give you 3 topics that the DBQ is going to be about. Okay, and it'll be one of those 3. Okay, I just chose this morning what the DBQ is going to be about. This is not the DBQ here. I want to say that again. This is not the DBQ. I just put this one up here as an example for us to look at, certain things. All right. We've gone over this now multiple times. Okay, when you're doing the DBQ documents, okay, if you're really timing yourself, it shouldn't take you more than 35, 40 minutes. All right, you're just restating quoting. Okay, it's not ELA class, just please don't give a long-winded answer. You can get either 1 point for it or 0. That's it. All right, so you will eventually elaborate on that quote and go into further detail when you get to the essay. There's no need to do it twice. Okay? Let's talk about the essay, though. That's going to be the big thing. If you have questions, there will be 9 documents. Good question. There will be 9 total documents. You will notice you're going to have to do all 9 documents, but you're only going to incorporate about 5 or 6 in the essay, and I'll explain why in a second. Okay. Just basic stuff. Number 1, the amount of bullet points equals the amount of body paragraphs in your essay. You're either going to see 2 bullet points or 3. You see 2 bullet points, 2 body paragraphs, 3 bullet points, 3 body paragraphs. You'll figure that out the day of. Okay? Your intro and conclusion should not take you long. Yeah, you do have to do a lot of outside information. We'll talk about that in a second. Okay? When you're on your intro and conclusion, you're going to just restate the historical context. Okay, don't copy and paste, restate it in your own words, and then come up with a thesis statement, just something that the essay is going to be about. Okay, nice clever sentence that introduces what the essay is going to be about. Don't spend a lot of time on it. To be honest, I'm not going to do a lot of, detailed reading on it like I will your body paragraph. So just get them on there. Okay, don't spend a lot of time. Okay, you will be given 3 topics. Okay, every DBQ document gives 3 topics. So in this case, this DBQ is talking about the Korean War, the Montgomery bus boycott, and the launching of Sputnik, all things that happened in the 1950s. All right. These 3 topics, you're only going to choose 2 when you write the essay. All right. So let's say you want to write about the Korean War and the Montgomery bus boycott. All right. In your essay, that means you should not mention the launching of Sputnik. You shouldn't incorporate any of those documents. You shouldn't do anything with it. Okay. It's like it doesn't exist. Now, that doesn't mean you don't answer the DBQ documents. You do. Okay. But you don't incorporate those in your essay. You don't mention it. Am I clear with that? I don't want to read an essay with you doing extra work. Okay. You should just be writing about 2 of the 3 documents. Okay, I don't think you guys want to do extra work, and there's no point to. That's not how you do the DBQ. All right. This will be something that you can keep in front of you. Point number 4. I don't think you need to really look at this right now, but just keep in mind when you're writing this, you should maybe keep this open. Okay. Every single body paragraph, you have to incorporate both topics. Okay, so each body paragraph will probably look like this. You're gonna have a topic sentence. You should start with a DBQ quote from the first topic and then give an explanation of that quote. From there, you want to add as much. Sure, this part, Rena, or the topics. Okay. So once you get to your first body paragraph, all right, you're going to want to have the inclination to put, let's say you're doing the Korean War. You're going to want to write a whole thing about the historical circumstances of the Korean War. And then you're going to want to go to a new paragraph because it's going to look long. I assure you don't. Okay, you want to put both topics you're writing about in the same body paragraph when you're answering the first bullet point. Okay, so you want to put your DBQ quote that you already got. Then you're going to elaborate on that quote, okay, for the first topic. Then you want to add as much outside information on the first topic as possible. Okay, I'm going to change this right here. This is a mistake. I apologize. Okay, I probably copied and pasted it. All right, so as much outside information. I'll talk about, how much in a little bit. Okay, if you can get 2 pieces, that's great. If you can get 6, that's even better. Okay, the more you can put, the more it helps you, as long as it's related to the topic. Okay. In that same paragraph, after about 5 to 8 sentences on that topic, you will go to the next part. It's going to seem like a lot of writing. These paragraphs are very long. All right. You're going to do the same thing, DBQ quote. All right. And then you put an explanation of the second topic. Good question, Nora. I would just maybe mention, something, a transitional sentence, something along the lines of, now, again, it doesn't have to be ELA. Like you could use we if we want. Now we will discuss how the Montgomery bus boycott affected people in the 1950s. All right, and then you can put whatever you want there, or the historical circumstances. Okay, so even better sentence would be say now we will discuss the historical circumstances surrounding the Montgomery bus boycott. Okay, you could talk more about segregation and things along those lines. Sure, Abigail, give me 1 second for that. All right, so when you're doing this, just keep an eye on number 4 here. All right, so here's number 5, Abigail. Try and make it as clear as possible. Okay, historical circumstances usually is the first bullet point, and let's just be honest, it's going to be the first bullet point again. Okay, you've done it all year, so you've had some practice with it. Okay, so let's say you're talking about the Korean War. All right. When you are doing the historical circumstances of the Korean War, in this paragraph, you don't want to mention anything about the Korean War. You don't want to mention about, who North Korea is, South Korea. You don't want to talk about, Dwight D. Douglas MacArthur. You don't want to talk about Harry Truman. You don't want to talk about any of those things. You want to talk about how we got to the Korean War. So you should talk about the end of World War II. You should talk about the Cold War, the Truman Doctrine, the Marshall Plan. How did we get to this moment in time, Abigail, okay? These are the events, the issues that led to the particular time you're writing about. You could look at them as the causes or the how did we get to this issue. So if you're doing this essay, I shouldn't see anything about the Korean War. And you'll notice that. You'll notice when you do document 1, let's say, it's all about the historical circumstances of the topic. All right? So just tell me how we got to this moment in time. If you approach a house that's on fire, okay, and you start investigating, the first thing you're going to ask is, how did this happen? Okay, how did we get to this moment in time? Right, that's what we're doing when we're talking about historical circumstances, okay? All of history has kind of come about, you know, all laws, all things that have happened, all major reform movements have happened because things have happened prior to it, and that's your time to explain it.
So are you saying that like nowhere in the essay there should be talking about the Korean War?
Nowhere in the first body paragraph. In the second body paragraph, you're going to go crazy on the Korean War and talk all about it. You understand? Not in the first body paragraph. This is the biggest mistake people make. They want to just get to the topic. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
It's not. We want to, you know, build it up. Give the reader an understanding that you know how we got to this moment in history. No problem. Okay? I'm expecting 5 to 6 documents added throughout the essay. You need a minimum of 4. Okay, a minimum of 4. But I think you'll find a way to incorporate at least 6 without a problem. Okay? You'll have a total of 9 documents. You should have no more than 6. Okay? No more than 6, no less than 4. So somewhere between 4 to 6. Yeah. Or the second one as the during and after. The first bullet point is before, the second one is during and after. That's a great way of explaining it. I should probably do that from now on, just kind of, yeah, that's how it is. The before, during, and after. All right. I'm expecting 5 to 6 documents added throughout the essay and right around 10 to 15 pieces of outside information. Okay, remember, if you're citing a document, you put parentheses doc 1. If you're citing outside information, parentheses OI. Okay, as you're going through this, just please keep in mind, 10 to 15 pieces of outside information seems like a lot, but when you really think about it, it's like 2 to 3 per topic per paragraph. It's not too crazy. Okay, even if it's stretched, it should be stuff we learn from class, but it can be other things. I remember when I was in 11th grade, okay, I did my U.S. history regents, and I remember the topic was on World War II at home. That was the topic. All right, so they were, you know, rationing all those things. Total, Josh, total. And I remember I happened to choose something, you know, I like movies, Liz Mel knows, right? I know I like movies. There was a movie that came out called A League of Their Own that talked about World War II, women playing baseball, taking the spots of men. So I used that in my essay, and I did really well. I think I got a 98 or a 99 on the U.S. history regents. And I wasn't a good student. Like, I was a 70s to 80s student. So me to get a 99 is like you guys getting 140. All right, so I use that. So it's mostly from the class, but it can be other things as well. If you know a documentary, if you know, have further research that wasn't from this class, definitely add it. Okay, you don't have to just do things we learned from this class, but you should definitely incorporate some. All right, so don't worry about the length. Just worry about trying to get all the information on there. I'm not going to say you need 15 sentences or 10 sentences. Don't worry about that. Just make sure you get the information out there. Okay? And if I catch anything plagiarized, you will receive a 0. I mean, guys, it's a take-home test. Just don't copy and paste from the internet. Okay? Don't even look stuff up on the internet. Use your notes. Use what you learned in class. Use your prior knowledge. You'll be perfectly fine. All right? I shouldn't see copied from students. I shouldn't see copied from the internet. I want to make myself clear with that. If I'm giving you a take-home test, it should be pretty straightforward. Any questions with that? I know the DBQ. Oh, great question, Gentiana. You should work on the exam during Friday. If you don't finish the multiple choice, it's no problem. I'm not going to look at anything until afterwards, okay, Sunday. Absolutely. Absolutely, it'll be very clear. The only difference, Gentiana, just to mention, the only difference is I am not going to let you review the answers when you're done. It's the only difference from all your tests. You'll know which ones you got wrong, you'll know your score, but you shouldn't find, you know, which answers. I don't want kids, you know, to take it and then send it to their friends, obviously. Right, correct, Aura. My movies will be very clear. All right, so if you want to know what you got wrong, you got to do it the old school way of emailing me and asking me. It's not going to just spit out the answers because, and you guys, it's probably already happened, to be honest, where someone's, you know, gotten the questions and they sent it to their friends. Don't tell me. I'm just going to assume you guys didn't, but I'm sure it's happened. It's somewhere in the school. All right. It should, Abigail, it should tell you your score. I just got to go through the settings a little. If it doesn't and you're done and you want to find out, just email me. I'll email you back within the hour. I'll tell you what your multiple choice score is, no problem. All right, but it's not going to spit out the answers. I think that's fair. Yes, Sanjita, it's a big test grade for the third marking period. All right, it's your final grade. I was thinking of counting it as like a triple test. I think we'll just do like we did the midterm. No other reason to get crazy. That's a good question. Depends what we have going forward in terms of you're going to have graduation on Monday. Then you'll have the Regents for Tuesday and Wednesday. If I have you, I have something planned. But if not, we're not so sure. All right, we'll talk about, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, sort of thing. All right. So we had about 10 minutes. We'll try and get through this as quick as we can. Again, please open up the assignment from yesterday. All right, this is maybe something we don't get fully through, but I think it was important to spend some time on the essay. And if you have questions, just email me. Okay, no problem. We'll get it done there. So if you can, let me see if I could find it here. Final review 2. All right, please open this up. All right, I'm going to speed through this. Okay, if I'm going too fast, which I'm probably going too fast, just stop me and ask a question, and we will obviously go over it. All right, so take a look here. It starts with amendments to the Constitution. Okay, I'm going to say right now, you don't need to know 26th Amendment. All right, so you can skip that. The 19th Amendment was the women's right to vote. 18th Amendment was prohibition. 21st Amendment was repealing prohibition. They just threw some random ones on there. Okay, you will have to know 19, 18, 21 maybe. Okay, maybe not like a question, but it is important to know what they did. Okay, the national policy of prohibition ended. The correct answer is 2. Prohibition is authorized by the 18th Amendment. The correct answer for that one, I don't know why they're all out of order here, but the correct answer for that one's 4. Okay, probably when it became a Google slide, it wasn't good. Supremacy clause in our Constitution, okay, whatever the federal government makes a law, all the lower levels of government have to follow. The states, the local governments, okay, the federal government makes a law, everyone has to follow. The interstate commerce clause basically means the federal government is in control of interstate trade. All right, this came from Gibbons versus Ogden, and it was also in our Constitution. All right, the elastic clause is sometimes known as implied powers. So sometimes the correct answer is going to, is we see a necessary and proper. Correct answer for that one is 4. The one right below this, the elastic clause, this had to do with the National Bank and the Jefferson Purchase of Louisiana Purchase. So the correct answer for that one's 1. There's no one below this one. Okay, also 1. Those are the 2 biggest examples of the elastic clause. The Interstate Commerce Act and the Sherman Antitrust Act were passed by Congress. 2, the correct answer is improve working conditions. What'd you guys get for this one? Increase, not, definitely not 1, definitely not 2. I would say 3 or 4. I would say 4 is the best answer. Yeah, protect the interests of small business. See, even I have to take a second. All right, very good. They talked about Congress here. How many members in the House of Representatives? Currently 435. The term bicameral means 2 House. The United States Constitution, the correct answer for this one is 2. All right. The correct answer for the bottom one here is also going to be 2. Okay, they're talking about all the things at the Constitutional Convention. All right, moving on. Who are the members of the executive branch? President, Vice President, Cabinet. Who was the first President of the United States? Please, guys, please. We should know that one. George Washington. All right, 22nd Amendment establishes how many terms a president can have, no more than 2. All right, and how can the president influence the Supreme Court? They can nominate Supreme Court justices. That's the checks and balances. All right, the correct answer for this one here, it's the second 2, so I guess we'd call that 3. Okay, the correct answer for that one's really 3. Again, I don't know what happened with some of these numbers. All right, how long do justices serve on the Supreme Court? For life. Why is this important? So they can't be influenced by elections or a term limit or being someone voting. Some people think there should be term limits, but for right now, it is life in the Supreme Court. Which Supreme Court case established judicial review? That would be Marbury versus Madison, and the Chief Justice was John Marshall. Okay, correct answer for the first one is 1. The correct answer for the second one, correct answer for that one is 3. Yep. The correct answer for the bottom one is 1. Okay, so any of you see judicial review, think unconstitutional. Okay, think in those lines. Is it possible to change the Constitution? Yes, you could pass an amendment. All right, don't go worry about that too. What judicial concern does this cartoon highlight? Well, this is going through checks and balances, a separation of powers. Okay, and we should know that our Constitution is flexible, okay, elastic, okay, so this way, you know, there's some interpretation. So for this one here, you can just talk about how, you know, the country is always changing and you want to have the opportunity to change the Constitution over time. All right, checks and balances, government makes the law, that's going to be the legislative branch. The second one here, judicial branch, and this is going to be the executive branch. All right, which branch of government has the power to impeach? That would be the legislative branch. All right, this one skipped. This one came back to back, so I apologize about that. So hopefully I didn't do it twice. The unwritten Constitution, again, it's just something that's developed in our country over time. So you got to think the cabinet, political parties, you know, committees in Congress, so to speak. An example of the unwritten Constitution is going to be 1. The correct answer for this one here is going to be 4. All right, keeping on moving. How do we determine how many electoral votes each state receives? That would be through the census. Okay, the amount of population a state has. Can a president lose the popular election and still win the presidency? Yes, absolutely. Okay, you don't have to mention all of them, but it's happened 5 times. The most recent one being Trump over Clinton in 2016. All right, but there's been one in 2000. That was a pretty big one. 1888, 1876, and 1824. How is the cartoon on the left creating a critique of the Electoral College? Because people don't necessarily technically vote for the president. The electors do. Even though the electors always vote with the people, you could see how the most popular president doesn't always become the president. Okay, the most popular nominee. Almost done. George Washington, biggest thing from his presidency is the farewell address. Okay, so make sure you know that. Talked about staying neutral. So the correct answer for that one's going to be 1. The correct answer for this one is going to also be 1. We go a little bit further in the 1920s prior to World War II. We stay isolated, which is even more than neutrality. The Whiskey Rebellion, people were just unhappy about being taxed on whiskey after the Revolutionary War. And eventually George Washington had to use his power and send in the military and National Guard to stop the rebellion of people who are unhappy about the taxes. So I kind of answered both questions there. Okay, a lot going on in this one. What was Alexander Hamilton's role in the government? He was the Secretary of Treasury. All right, so he was dealing with the finances of our country. He created a national bank. Okay, I don't have really time to go into both, but he created the national bank. This was a loose interpretation of the Constitution. McCulloch versus Maryland, don't have to know it for your test, okay, but has to do with basically the federal government getting more power throughout this time. And same thing with Gibbons versus Ogden, established interstate commerce, and the federal government's in control of it. All right. First question here, the correct answer is going to be number 1. The next question, the correct answer is going to be number 3. The next question, correct answer is going to be 1. Next question, the correct answer is going to be 3. The next question, if you're following along, that's highlighted. Alexander Hamilton proposed a national bank. Correct answer is going to be 1. And Jefferson opposed Hamilton to create a national bank. The correct answer is going to be 4 here. All right, and the last one, McCulloch versus Maryland. The correct answer is going to be 2. All right. That is it, guys and girls. I will see you all tomorrow. I see you all 6th period. Have a great day.